Hello, fellow fiends. Welcome to another episode of Creepy Cases and Spooky Spaces. I am your creator and host, Cassiopeia. Don't forget, you can find new episodes every Friday, and there are bonus episodes every other Tuesday for subscribers to the Patreon and Anchor website. You can also, if you want to support without subscribing, you can donate to the Cash App at $COPEIA. That's COPEIA. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter that I'm getting put together, as it will update you on all the creepy, spooky stuff. Bonus content. Subscribing also comes with a merchandise discount and some thank you swag. I think that's what the kids are still saying these days. Maybe not. I don't know. And that merchandise discount is actually good on all of the items in the Wick and Fae shop, not just the Creepy Cases items. You can actually use it on the candles as well. Now, don't forget to follow along on social media at creepycases.spookyspaces. That'll keep you updated on all future news updates, show notes, stuff that's not posted or covered on the podcast. Just little random tidbits, facts, spooky stuff, creepy stuff, just things that I don't really promote here on the podcast itself. Creepy cases, or no, if you have a creepy case or spooky space, definitely reach out to me through email, creepycases.spookyspaces@gmail.com. And if you'd like to do a ad space, or if you'd like to partner in a paid promotion to have it featured on the podcast, definitely reach out to that email as well, creepycases.spookyspaces@gmail.com. So today we'll actually be continuing our Frank Lloyd Wright series with our second round of buildings that he designed that were followed by tragedies. Now, last week I told you about Taliesin, which I basically pronounced it incorrectly. It's not Taliesin, it's Taliesin. So I just want to kind of update and correct that. And I have a couple more to tell you about this week. Now, the Dana Thomas House in Springfield, Illinois, the Pawson House in Phoenix, Arizona, and the Bradley House in Chicago, Illinois. So you're actually getting a 3 for this week, which, yay! Now, the first family home that was lost due to owners' mental health. It declined rapidly. Rose Pawson's house actually caught fire and burned down to basically nothing. And then the Bradley home was plagued by I hate to call it bad luck, but it was definitely a streak of bad luck. And there was actually a suicide that happened. Not in the home, however, there's some activity around the home that is most likely connected to that suicide. So why don't we get started on those 3 homes? I don't want to give too much away here in the intro. So yeah, let's get started. Let's start by learning about Susan Lawrence. She was born in 1862 and the only child of Mary and Runa Lawrence. And Runa made his fortune by supplying military supplies to state and federal governments during the Civil War. Now, he invested his savings in a very, very wide range of enterprises, including banking, stocks, coal, railroad, lumber, real estate, and he actually owned a silver mine in Colorado and a gold mine in Oregon. So it seems that he was pretty pretty business savvy, pretty good at pulling in money and definitely taking care of his family and setting them up for success. Now, Runa also had quite the influence in the political world, and this could actually be how Susan herself learned how to influence prominent members of society as well. Now, Susan lived during a time when women were just starting to find their voice, and they were making their way in society kind of up the ladder and kind of making just a space for women in general. And as the world changed and progressed, Susan made sure that she did as well. And she actually ended up traveling the world, standing up for the rights of women and African Americans, and she donated her time and money, and she led speakers of spiritual truth. Now, she was a lovely woman, blonde, full-figured. She dressed fashionably, and she had a personality that made her the center of just every party she would walk into, every room she was in. People just loved her. And these parties that she threw actually included many of her celebrity friends. And however, Susan's life was filled with tragedy. Now, on December 4th, 1883, Susan married a young mining engineer and real estate investor, Edwin Dana. Now, the couple had two children. Sadly, both died in infancy. And this brought major grief to Susan, as she loved children and was so happy with each pregnancy. Now, Susan and Edwin moved around a lot due to Edwin's career, but in 1900, she ended up returning to Illinois with his body in tow. Now, Edwin had been at a work site and he was hoisting up ore when the harness snapped, causing the pulley arm to spin in reverse, and it hit him in the chest and ended up killing him. Now, Susan was, as you can imagine, she lost two children and now she's lost her husband. She was just absolutely, crushed, for lack of a better term. And just a year later, her father would actually pass away as well. And on February 17th, 1901, Runa died in his Springfield home. And it was a tragic blow to the family, but it left Susan with major financial windfall and freedom as the head of the household. And like I said, she definitely crawled her way up, learned how to do the financial side of things. She learned how to do the political side of things, the social side. She was definitely set up for success, and she could definitely be on the right track. Now, she actually decided to build a new family home for herself, her mother, her grandmother, and her cousin Flora, who they were really close with. Now, she found Frank Lloyd Wright in her search for an architect, and he was innovative and definitely ahead of his time. And construction started in 1902. Now, sadly, this would be the same year that her grandmother would pass away. Now, the home took 2 years to complete, so her grandmother never got to live in it, and it's amazing. The rooms are 2 stories with the dining hall, the entertaining gallery, which is kind of like a reception room, and it doubled as a conservatory. So have loved to see this house, because I am all about the stars, astronomy, constellations, the moon. It's really about the moon. Well, the stars too. But all of those rooms were downstairs while the bedrooms were all upstairs. And the staircases were actually hidden as not to distract from the home's design. And Susan was really excited about the prospect of this new home and this new beginning and just being able to provide for her family and herself. Now, doubts began to creep in about the amount of money that she was spending to build it. And to kind of soothe her fears, she reached out to a spirit medium who contacted her dead father's spirit. And she really just wanted to get his advice, kind of to see whether he supported the home, but he apparently definitely expressed his delight. So she continued on with the home. Now, I know a lot of people laugh at the belief in spiritualism, especially of that kind. A lot of people don't believe that you can communicate with the deceased. However, I have done it accidentally. I don't know how to do it on purpose. But yeah, but in definitely in these times that Susan was doing this, it was a prominent force in America. A lot of people were just kind of sort of getting into it, learning about it. No, I'm not going to say there weren't people who definitely took advantage of that. There are still people who take advantage of that. And they definitely happen, and they figure out how to kind of, what's the word? Kind of read your cues, get information from you, and they definitely play on that. So there are fakers out there, but there are people out there who can actually do it. But Susan began hosting lavish parties for the women's club, parties for the local children and orphanages. She had dinners for the old age homes in the area, galas for families of workers who built the home, and just the busy holiday just took a toll on her mother. And besides the parties, they went on a trip, the Caribbean, relaxing in the Bahamas. They went to Jacksonville and Palm Beach, Florida as well. But while on the train to Savannah, Georgia, Susan's mother had a heart attack and died. So this was another blow that came just not that long after everything else happened. It seemed that a lot of these things were just kind of happening within a year or within a couple of years of the last tragedy. Now, in March 1912, she married Jordan Constantine Dahl. And this caused a lot of gossip because Jordan was like half Susan's age, which I kind of find that to be a little funny because back in these days, people were marrying very young. Men were marrying, young girls, women were marrying, young men. And I think it's funny. And maybe it's just because she was kind of in the spotlight. She was supposed to be a specific way, and people thought she should live her life in a different manner. However, mind your business. Now he actually, 1 year later, tragically died as well. And no, they didn't think that she was killing them or anything like that. They just died under odd circumstances, just those freak accidents. Now, in 1915, she remarried to a man named Charles German, but they separated and divorced in 1930. So not as tragically as a death, but they did separate. It did not work out. Now, Susan continued her party life. She enjoyed those lavish get-togethers, but she also enjoyed just being there for the people who needed her. And this was her way of showing that she definitely supported them and was there for them. Now, her funds started to diminish, and so did her mental health. And she actually got to the point where she had to move out of the grand house and into the Lawrence cottage. And around this time, Flora, who, if you have kind of been keeping tally, her cousin is basically the last person that she has left that she was really close with. Her father has died, her grandmother passed away, two of her husbands died, her mother passed away, and now her cousin, Flora, she became ill, and Susan actually cared for her until 1928 when Flora finally passed away. Now, Susan herself was in poor health, and I feel this was most likely what caused her to kind of snap. Because she was both physically and mentally ill. And so she started trying to sell her home because it became apparent that her funds were going to just keep diminishing. Money wasn't coming in as fast as it was going out. She was used to a very grand and luxurious lifestyle, and it seemed that she didn't plan on letting that go. So she tried to sell the home, but just had no luck. Even though she owed the bank $167,000, they refused to foreclose on the home. And a lot of people think it's because they wanted her to see that they still supported and just kind of what's the word? They were trying to stay true to that connection and the friendship that they had with her father and also with Susan. Now, in 1942, Susan was admitted to St. John's Hospital. And the home finally sold in 1943. And this was after quite a few years of trying to sell the home. However, the home sold for only $17,500, which is just absolutely crazy to me, as this home was worth way more than $17,500. I will say that if you think about it, I'd love to buy a house for $17,500 right now, but that doesn't get you very far. And I know I know $17,000 back in 1942 was way more money than it is today. However, it's still just the thought process of this was a Frank Lloyd Wright home. It was a special design. It was absolutely just stunning. And it was turned into a headquarters for Thomas Publishing Company. So it actually was turned into a business. It wasn't even kept as a home. Now, Susan Lawrence passed away February 20th, 1946. And although she was deemed lucid and aware of her surroundings, she actually had basically gone into insanity, and it was actually why she was hospitalized. But her belongings had to be sold to cover her debts. And now in official documents, there's statements of the home being haunted, but they're all denied, of course, but many people, visitors and employees and volunteers, have reported strange occurrences over the years. And I don't understand why so many people want to try to deny that houses are haunted. I mean, it's not a bad thing. Maybe it's too, well, no, because they do tours, so I wouldn't see them trying to deter people to come and see the home. But yeah, so it has your typical strange sounds, footsteps, clapping in an empty home where it's basically one, like somebody closing up for the night. They're by themselves. They hear clapping coming from the other room. Maybe it's, one of those big lavish parties that's going on. They're still, partying on the other side. There was actually a one time when a light sconce flew off the wall, and this was on Susan's birthday. So maybe she was saying, I'm still here. Shadows are seen around the home. One visitor actually reported a strong feeling of sorrow and sadness when they walked into the nursery. And that was most likely because, the two children that were lost, and Susan probably still felt that grief for the rest of her life. I don't think that's anything that you can definitely get over. Um, another reported Another reported sighting was the apparition of a woman in a nightgown with her hair that was blowing as if there was an open window or a breeze, but all of the windows were closed. And then they found out that the room was actually Susan's bedroom that they were looking up into. Now, a volunteer actually told the story of hearing the saddest humming coming from the billiards room, and the room was completely empty once again, and chairs have been thrown downstairs. Curtains have been seen moving around kind of back and forth as if somebody's trying to straighten them out or fix them, or just kind of tidying up. There was a woman dressed in black walking down the stairs from the master bedroom, and when the person called out to them, um, they just kept going. They didn't stop or anything like that. Now, a lot of the sightings actually coincide with Susan's birthday or the day that her mother died. But there were also 3 funerals in this home at the same time on the same day. And so a lot of that it coincides on that day as well. And there was a band who was doing a sort of like an inaugural kind of an inaugural. I don't remember what they were there for, but it wasn't anything like, oh, this is, big in the world, but it was just kind of somebody was having an event there. And the band said that they were out on the balcony and they were playing, and they took a break, and then when they came back, the balcony was so cold, but just that area, it was so cold to the point they couldn't play because their fingers were so cold and kept freezing up. So they actually weren't able to play for the rest of the evening. So I think that is definitely interesting. I love music though, and I think even when I pass on, I don't think the band playing the music is what I'm going to come back and put a stop to. Yes. So the next home that I have for you today is the Rose Pawson House in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, I would actually love to give you history on Rose Pawson and her sister Gertrude. However, I couldn't find anything on them except that she commissioned Frank Lloyd Wright to design this home for her and her sister in 1939. And apparently there were over 50 letters where she kind of communicated with him about her wants, her needs, her desires for the home. And like I said, it was located in Phoenix, Arizona. I haven't seen the letters, but there's actually a book that was released that I'm thinking about getting because I'm kind of curious. And the letters, though, are filled with very personal details, very revealing details, and very revealing, what would be the word? Personality traits of the two. And at times, they're actually filled with tension. The home was built basically before air conditioning. And so Frank Lloyd Wright actually used a combination of desert stone, lumber, and shade to kind of keep everything cooled down. And it kind of it had a balcony, it had a studio on the floor plan. It also had a servant's quarters, and Wright and Pawson actually went back and forth a lot. And Wright actually wrote in one of his letters that if the house doesn't fit you from the soles of your feet to the top of your head, it wouldn't be one of our houses. But I think it's kind of funny that they argued back and forth, and he would kind of tell her this, tell her that, and then he'd be like, oh, but if you don't like it, it's definitely not one of my houses. And it's like, but you're sitting here basically telling me how to build my house, what to put in my house, where to put things. And I get it, like as a designer, and you kind of know, especially Frank Lloyd Wright, you kind of know how to use different things to work for you and what will work against you. And even though I still think that like you should still kind of take in the person who you're building the house for, I still think you should kind of take in their preferences as well. Now, Wright and Pawson actually disagreed on many things. Water leaks, repair bills, fire hazards. She was big on fire hazards. And I guess it's very dry in Phoenix. And so fire hazards were actually a big concern back then. They probably are today too, but I don't think I really know anybody in Phoenix, Arizona. If you live in Phoenix, comment below and let me know if fire hazards are still a pretty big thing. But there was a big debate on where to put the main fireplace, and the final choice would actually prove to be a fatal one. And the home was finished, and it was basically used as a winter getaway from their house in San Francisco. And it was finished in 1940. Now, Sarah and Gertrude only lived in the two-story home for one season before moving back to their San Francisco home just 1 year later. Now, of course, it was supposed to be used as just a winter getaway. So I guess they ended up renting out the house while they weren't using it. Now, in 1942, an ember from that main fireplace blew to a nearby window, igniting a hand-woven curtain, causing the house to burn down to the ground. And basically, all that remained were the ruins of the foundation and the main chimney mass. Now, this was left there for many, 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 many years. The ruins were, and it actually became known as Shiprock. That's what they called it. And it actually turned into a place for just a local hangout for teens. But sadly, there were a lot of vandalism going on. It was covered in graffiti, but they actually relocated the ruins in the 1980s. I'm actually not sure what year, but I know that it was in the 1980s. And so they wanted to expand and kind of lengthen the road. And a lot of people actually weren't very happy that they did this because they thought that like this is a historical landmark, even though it's really just kind of walls and a chimney mass. But they actually protested and fought to get it to not have it moved, but they ended up moving it anyway, so they could expand the road. So I actually really would have liked to see this home. I think there's like a couple of photos that you can see online, which obviously I'll post here as well. But it seemed like a gorgeous home. So, So, our third home was designed in 1900. Yet, again, another home designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And this is the B. Harley Bradley House in Kankakee, Illinois. Is it Kankakee? Kankakee? That's a fun word. Kankakee. Now, this home was actually kind of special to Frank Lloyd Wright, as it was his first prairie-style home. And now the prairie-style home is named because of Wright, who actually developed this style based on wide horizontal landscapes and natural plant forms of the tall grass prairie that surrounded the area. Now, B. Harley Bradley and his wife, Anna Hickox Bradley, were the brother-in-law and sister of Warren Hickox. Now, Harley Bradley inherited a large sum of money from his grandfather, who was a manufacturer of local plowshares and other garden equipment. Now, the Bradley home is made of Roman brick with a riverfront sitting area, and it consists of a 6,000 square foot living area, a 6,000 square foot basement, and a 3,000 square foot stable area that's actually connected to the main house with a breezeway. Now, Harley, Anna, and their daughter, Margaret, lived in the home for about 11 and a half years. And now some details get a little fuzzy because it seems like there are different stories told. So it's one of those things where it's kind of this person says this happened, this person says that happened. And of course, there's always three sides to the truth. Yours, theirs, the truth. Three sides to every story, not three sides to every truth. This side, and the truth. And everybody, and I will say that perception is reality. I know that some people think, well, that's not the way I intended to say something, or that's not the way that I saw it. And, this person, well, that's not the way that I saw it. So our perception is our reality. But not everybody perceives things the same way. A basic rundown of the events that led up to the tragedy itself. The patriarch who started the company, the Plowshare Company, died in 1899. And the family tried to still carry on the business, but other bigger businesses kept coming in. And in 1910, Sears, Roebuck and Company, now known today as Sears, bought their firm. Now, they tried to keep the family on and to help, and just to not completely bump them out. But there was definitely a lot of back and forth and kind of debates about how they should run certain things. But finally, the family did just completely take their leave. The family's finances began to dwindle after this. And in September of 1912, they sold the home and moved to Iowa. And they were hoping for a fresh start. But Iowa didn't work out. And 2 years later, in 1914, Harley actually took a business trip to Chicago, which also didn't go very well. I'm not sure what the business trip really entailed or what he was supposed to accomplish, because I couldn't find any details about that. Some of the records, at this time weren't kept up very, I don't want to say very well, but you don't have a lot of records and a lot of documentation about certain things. Now at 3:00 in the morning, he actually wrote a letter to Anna telling her that he was going to end it all. And it's actually a really sad letter, but the ending of it says, "I know you will expect me home on the 7:30 train, and I am going to disappoint you just this once more. Forgive me if you can, and don't forget that I love you." That is so sad. He posted the letter that morning, and Anna actually was waiting for him at the 7:30 train. However, the letter arrived in his place. Now, Harley woke up the next morning, 9 a.m. on a Monday, and kind of laid around in bed, kind of throwing thoughts around, and I'm pretty sure he was just fighting with himself. But he decided to shoot himself in the head, and this actually blinded him. The bullet, according to records, actually went through his temples, and it blinded him, but it didn't kill him. So he was found by one of the maids who came to clean the room. She called, the police and medical care, and he was sent to the hospital. And basically, a letter was sent to Anna saying, or some kind of communication was sent to Anna saying that he was still holding on, I guess. But she did not get there in time. He held on until 5 p.m. that same Monday before he finally passed away at St. Luke's Hospital. And now this happened just a month. Actually, this happened in the same year, 1914, as Taliesin did, the big massacre. And this happened basically just a month before, almost to the day, which is why we are doing this Frank Lloyd Wright series, because I'm still wondering if he was cursed or if he just attracted other people who were cursed, because I know that a lot of these people had tragedies in their lives before Frank Lloyd Wright entered the picture, but I still just find it to be a little odd how he is still there. He is still in each story. Now, Anna Margaret and Anna's in-laws actually moved back to Kankakee, where she opened a tea room in downtown, and they all lived above the store until her in-laws actually left and moved again. Now, everyone who lived in this home actually faced some sort of tragedy. This isn't just the Bradley houses or the Bradley family's tragedy. It was opened as a restaurant, but within the first, 10 months, very short-lived, the owners ended up having to file for bankruptcy. Or a few others actually had deaths in the family, but tragic deaths, not, oh man, they were old and their heart gave out. This was basically, oh man, that is a freak accident that we did not see coming. A lot of people had to sell due to finances. A lot of people seemed to have financial problems when they would take on this house. Now, in 1986, Stephen Small would buy the home and start a remodel. However, in 1987, Stephen Small was lured from his home by someone who called saying the house was being broken into. Now, when he showed up, he was actually kidnapped, and his captors were demanding $1 million for his release in ransom. They put a stocking over his face, handcuffed him, drove him out to a wooded area, and buried him alive. They actually they manufactured a casket type box, a wooden box, and they buried him alive, and they had a PVC pipe that was actually sticking up. And I believe they said he was buried in 3 feet of sand, and they actually left food for him because they were, I guess, hoping that he'd get out because they would get their $1 million. However, that did not work, and Stephen actually suffocated to death. And the couple who were they were found, and they were actually found guilty. They were sentenced to the death penalty, but I believe in actually not too long ago, well, I guess actually it's been a while, about 20 years or so, their death penalties were communicated to life in prison. So, now, after this happened, the home changed owners a couple more times, and in 2006, it actually caught fire. Now, the fire started in an air conditioning in an air conditioning unit that actually wouldn't have even been on at this time, as it was January. So that's kind of a mystery in itself, how the unit that's not even being used or not even being on is basically catching fire. Now, I lost my train of thought. Oh, the couple who owned the home, they actually were using it, I believe, as a business as well. And they were out to dinner. And had they been home, they probably would have died, because where the fire started, it came right down into that master bedroom area where they would have been sleeping. So they probably most likely would have died. Now, in this home, there's been reports of sounds that come out of nowhere when the house is empty. Tour guides have said that they lock up, close everything down for the evening, only to find in the morning things are unlocked or something's been moved. And it's a very, just the same old, people it seems that spirits come out and they still just live their lives in the home. So, there's shadows, doors open and close on their own, lights turn on and off. As I said, they're still just living their lives in the afterlife. They don't, a lot of them don't understand that they're not really of this world anymore. So, and there's actually been reports of sighting a Frank Lloyd Wright apparition. And as you'll hear in the next episode of the Frank Lloyd Wright series, which will be the final episode. And then after that, there's only 2 episodes left. However, one is a bonus episode and one is a regular episode. So make sure that you are subscribed to get those 2 episodes. Now, however, you will see that Frank Lloyd Wright is seen in a couple of his locations. So definitely interesting. And a lot of it seems to be like him just kind of like keeping an eye on things. So maybe he's still just traveling around in the afterlife, like checking on the houses. Maybe he doesn't realize that in the afterlife, maybe he thinks that they're still being built and worked on and everything. But yeah, tell me if you've ever been to any of these homes. Well, or in Phoenix, Arizona, tell me if you've been to the ruins of the Rose Pawson house, the Bradley home in Chicago, the Dana Thomas house in Springfield, just any of those places. Also, if you have a Frank Lloyd Wright place that you know about has, major tragedy, definitely comment below. Like the episode, share it, tell your friends, tell your family. Definitely pull them into the conversation, because I'm sure everybody has a fellow fiend who is into the creepy, spooky. So, like I said, pull them in, get involved in the conversation. Please keep all comments respectful, though. There's already so much just boo in the world. Let's not add to it. And on that note, I will see you next crime. Creepy Cases and Spooky Spaces with Cassiopeia is a Pizza and Pigtails production. All episodes are researched, written, and edited by yours truly. You can find new episodes every Friday, with bonus episodes coming out every other Tuesday. You can find the podcast on your favorite listening platform, or now you can find it on YouTube as well. Don't forget to follow along on social media, creepycases.spookyspaces, for all future news, updates, and maybe some content that you won't find on the podcast. Also, be sure to subscribe so you can get access to bonus content, early access to content, and a couple of little thank you swag. If you'd like to contact me about appearing on a future episode, maybe you would like to suggest your own creepy case or spooky space, or maybe you'd also like to reach out about ad space, you can reach me directly at creepycases.spookyspaces@gmail.com, or feel free to reach out through those social media platforms as well. And as always, see you next crime.